Rumspringa!
Hey, Brynne, have you seen Steel Magnolias?
Oh my god, yes, I love that movie.
Jonsey, you've seen it, right?
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
You've seen Dracula, right?
Oh, I love that movie. It's so good.
Lena, you've seen it.
What do you think? Filmspringa!
Hey, Brynne, have you seen Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh my god, Weekend at Bernie's saved my life.
Jonsey, you have to have seen it.
Oh my god! No, I haven't. Of course not. You've seen Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the best.
That movie scared the out of me when I was a
Did
kid.
it scare the out of you? I have not seen that one, and I will be praying for all of your souls.
It's your Filmspringa, Lena.
Hasn't seen it.
It's showtime!
Hey, everybody. Hi, all you film springers. Welcome to another episode of Filmspringa, the podcast all about your favorite films and your sheltered friend who's never seen them. I'm Tony, and I'm here with...
Brynne. I'm Brynne.
and our sheltered friend.
Hi guys, I'm Lena.
Yeah, a.k.a. Jonsey. Call her whatever
Jonsey.
you want. Yeah. This
I'll
week,
answer to hey you.
we are going back to the 90s. This is actually came out the year I graduated high school. That tells you how old I am.
So old.
It is...
What's that, 40 years ago?
Shut your mouth.
Rude.
It is a 1995 dark comedy, Welcome to the Dollhouse. Oh,
Welcome
I love
to the
this film.
Dollhouse.
I have very strong... I saw this actually in the theater a few times when it came out.
That's nuts.
And it's a very indie film. It was like made off of what? I think it was $800,000 it cost
a
to make
shoestring budget.
it. Oh, yeah.
Not shocking. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did really well in the box office, and the critics loved it, and all of that good stuff. But we're going to watch the trailer and get everybody in the mood for a little bit of Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Don, let me put it to you straight. We're not here to get you. But you've got to understand, you're in junior high now. This goes in the computer, on your record.
Hey, Lena, what are you looking at?
Nothing. You didn't come in here to wash your hands. Yes, I did.
Hi, Dawn. We were just wondering, are you a lesbian?
Brandon, I can't be your girlfriend. I'm in love with someone else.
Who?
Steve Rogers. He's in high school.
Who's Steve Rogers?
Well, Steve Rogers is only like one of the most popular guys in class.
Steve, you will fall in love with me. You will take me away from this place.
Dawn, for you.
I'm thinking of using this one for my first album cover.
Oh, Steve, they're all so beautiful.
You better get ready.
Steve! I have to talk to you.
Well, Steve is horny.
How horny.
He'd go out with anyone as long as it was a girl and willing.
You mean having intercourse?
Duh.
You're her older sister, and Missy loves you.
I love you. You do not. I do not.
You are not leaving this table until you tell your sister that you love her.
Do you think about girls?
What, are you kidding? I want to get into a good school.
Were you playing with my dolls?
I love that.
Ridiculous.
So the film was directed and written by Todd Solondz. Solondz? Is that how you say his last name? Do you guys know?
Solondz? What's he
Todd-
done? Anything?
Yeah, he's done a lot. Well, all of his films
Yeah.
have a very dark undertone, like Happiness. If you guys have seen that storytelling.
Yep.
And then his film, Palindromes, actually takes the character of Dawn Wiener. And this opening of the film is at Dawn Wiener's funeral. She died of suicide. And they actually asked the actress who played Dawn Wiener, I can never say her last name, Heather Matazzara, to reprise her role as Dawn Wiener, and she said no, which I don't blame
Good
her.
for her.
But
Why?
because she
Such a
said
beloved.
no, she said doing the film at the time when she was that age was was very eye-opening for her sexuality because she ended up coming out as a lesbian later. And in an interview later on after the film came out, she said the film helped her realize her sexuality because she didn't understand what a lesbian was at the time of the filming of Welcome to the Dollhouse. And so she went and researched and she realized, oh my God, that's what I am. But she grew up very religious. So it took her about 9 years after this film came out, she came out 9 years later and was very comfortable with her sexuality.
What religion? Because this very much pertains to our podcast.
I want to say she grew up very Catholic, or I want to say Catholic. I gotta look it up, but I want to say she was Catholic or something like that.
I'm kind of surprised her parents let her do this movie.
If they were so religious.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I can understand, them letting her act and do something like Princess Diaries.
Yeah.
That's what I know her from. But yeah, I'm surprised that at such a young age, her parents, knowing that she was in a strict, whatever denomination or faith it was.
Catholic, so
I'm still surprised that they let her do that.
You total slam on Heather Matarazzo's parents
right
out the gate, Lena.
How about, Brynne, you give us a brief synopsis or plot of the movie before we get into the depth of
Making
the movie.
enemies right and left.
Matarazzo, Lena thinks her parents suck. So this movie is centered around it's so hard. It is centered around a middle school girl. It is not a coming of age.
She's 11 and a half,
story.
the character of Dawn Wiener.
Yeah, she's 11 and a half. So she's not coming
grade
of age. She's in middle school. And it is basically just the story of an awkward, bullied, picked on, unloved middle school girl.
Yeah.
And I think no matter who you are or what you are, like creed, color, religion, sexuality, we can all relate to the awkward bullying of a middle school girl because we have all felt like that.
Oh yeah.
So that's it. It's just all the weird stuff that happens, how her parents suck and she's got a perfect little sister that's pretty and does ballet and she's awkward and her last name is Wiener. That's not fair to anyone. Change it.
And this is another film about horrible parenting and horrible adults. I was just like, I've seen this movie so many times because I actually watched it in the theater when it came out in '95. But the film itself, I think, like we were talking before, for me, is very, very honest, raw, kind of cruel version, or what's it called, view of junior high that I've ever seen in film. I mean, it's brutally honest. I mean, kids that age are horrible.
It is true.
I was talking to the guy I'm dating. We were watching it together, and he kept saying like, "This isn't real. This isn't how kids really act." And I was like, "No, you're right." And I was like, "No, I was bullied in middle school, and this girl did call me a lesbo. She followed me around on the bus, call me a lesbo. One time, I broke my finger, and she's like, "Where'd you get that from? Finger banging?" And I was like,
I had somebody in junior high write faggot on my locker, so I can relate to Wiener Dog having all that shit. Like, to me, like I was saying, it's a real depiction of junior high. I think high school is a little easier, maybe, because you kind of come into your own, but junior high is the worst. And
junior high is awful. It's also awful to teach. Like, those because you're such
teachers too. We're horrible.
We're horrible. Her teachers are horrible to her.
Dawn Wiener.
Well, and you're stuck. Middle school is such an age where, like, you still kind of want to play with dolls sometimes, but then you also want to light them on fire and wear training bras. And, like, you don't understand why you're like, I want to kiss that kid and I want to hit him.
Yeah.
Middle school's hard.
I mean, I didn't understand, but I guess some people might, like, when she has a bully in this, it's just many bullies, including her parents. But one of the bullies tells her, "I'm going to rape you tomorrow."
Yeah, Brandon.
I don't like she's just like that.
Okay. Sorry, the hard R. This is triggering. And this movie is triggering for anyone who's experienced sexual assault.
We say all the bad R words in this movie.
But then he calls her on the phone at her home. Where she lives with her family and goes, "Remember tomorrow, I'm gonna rape you. And she's like, okay, Brandon.
Like, and then they have this scene when they're laying in the special people's clubhouse, and she tells Brandon, I can't be your boyfriend. He's like, who the fuck is this other guy? like that
very hot college guy.
It's like, oh, she just wants to be somebody to think she's cool and I
will tell you that there was like an older college. This movie was triggering for me in the sense that I was like, I am Dawn Wiener. I was such a nerd.
This was also triggering for me.
I remember putting on like a Southern Belle hat, thinking my college crush would think it was like so chic and hot and walking around the neighborhood. And I was like, it's so painfully earnest that I had to stop several times and walk away.
The movie?
I was like, the movie. Yeah.
I think maybe because I've watched it so many times. When I watch the film, I always get in the mood afterwards of like, ooh, I just want to fuck somebody up. I want to fuck somebody up. Look at me wrong. I thought you
were going somewhere
else.
Look at me wrong. I thought you were saying it got you in the mood.
God, no.
And I was like, okay, all right, strange.
Yeah, I look at producer Rob and I'm like, 3 o'clock. You get
3 o'clock.
And Rob's like,
don't like any of this.
Yes, okay, when is this? Let me put it in my calendar.
Producer Rob is like, do you want me to lay down? What's happening?
I know.
Yes.
So uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, but
that was hard to
hear.
hear.
The film, it is actually a really good film. Like if you look at it and what it is and the time it came out, there was really nothing like it that came out that was so honest in a way. Honest and did a real depiction of junior high, I thought.
Well, and think about like Napoleon Dynamite. Like, they played it for like screwball comedy, but it is a ripoff of Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Yeah, and
I hated that movie too.
And Cruel Intentions, the guy that wrote Cruel Intention was influenced by Welcome to the Dollhouse. He saw Welcome to the Dollhouse and he was walking across the street and he thought of Dangerous Liaisons. Let's put him in high school. And that's how but it was, he credits Welcome to the Dollhouse as his inspiration for doing Cruel Intentions.
So fun Lena fact, Cruel Intentions is one of my most favorite films. I did see it when it first came out.
It's awful.
I loved it from the get-go.
It's a horrible film.
I also love the soundtrack.
It's an awful movie.
Awful movie. It really
Very
is.
bad.
This was an awful movie.
No, it wasn't. I don't think so. Okay. I think that's debatable.
Okay, it's going to be one of those episodes.
Where Lena's going to hate everything.
Shut up, dog.
Holy moly.
Gosh. But some of the fun facts about the film is the director, Todd Solzat, decided to leave the business, the show business, because he had done a short before this, or another indie movie called Fear, Anxiety, and Depression, and he had a horrible experience doing the film, and he said he was never going to go back to showbiz because he didn't like it, whatnot. And then he had a lawyer friend that was like, no, you need to go back and make a movie, a feature. And so he wrote the script for Welcome to the Dollhouse in like 89, I want to say, or somewhere around there, and he just put it in the back shelf and was like, nobody's ever going to touch this. So this lawyer friend of his was like, I'm going to get the financing for you to do a film. So he brought out Welcome to the Dollhouse and reworked the script, and it got greenlit, and he ended up making it, and it won the jury grand prize for Sundance. And it was like, critics really liked this movie when it came out
because it's so earnest and real. And it's just like about emotions, and it's like so awkward and painful that you can't look away, but you relate to it, and you hate yourself, and you hate it, and it makes you feel all of these emotions. It
does.
Like,
I think it does.
I do understand why this was groundbreaking and great for its time.
For 95, yeah, for its time. Do you not think?
Thanks for giving that to us, Lena.
Yeah, thanks, Lena. I think kids even now in junior high probably have it worse, because back then they didn't have social media. You weren't getting bullied on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I also feel like you're being bullied for different stuff these days.
I don't think so. I think kids are still horrible at that age, and they're going to tease you about.
They're still
and
horrible.
They're still going to call kids fags. You still hear it all the time. I don't think I disagree.
I disagree.
No, I disagree with you, Lena, because
when was the last time you hung out with
I got yelled. I was walking down the street maybe 2 or 3 years ago in Hillcrest, and these two, they had to be junior high kids, rolled down their window with the parents in front, and they yelled out faggot. So, I mean, they are still doing
with the parents in front. So maybe it's just that they were shithole kids. I'm just saying, my nieces and nephews, it is a different time where that is not allowed. Like there's different ways kids are bullied is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I just think I think if you're saying kids are not bullied as bad these days,
no. I'm saying different. I'm saying different. And that's where I'm saying this maybe doesn't hold up is kids are like, we're not necessarily going to make fun of you with the F word or that kind of stuff.
I think that sexuality, because that's when you're first having your like sexual awakening and sexual feelings. And so, anything that's not deemed like fully normal, kids are going to go after. Yeah. And we are all so protective and insecure about our sexuality that it's like weight or something or appearance. It's like your sexuality and your weight or your appearance. Like those are the things that people can hit and it hurts you.
Agreed. So absolutely appearance, all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying the sexuality stuff, there's not as much steam in it in the younger generation.
I think we want to think that.
Yeah, but I think actually it's still there. I still think it's, yes, granted, compared to 95 to now, a lot of kids in high school, middle school have it a little better, but it's still a problem. They're still going to get
made out now.
Yeah.
Kids are transitioning now.
But that doesn't mean they're not getting bullied. They maybe are out there, but I'm saying they're probably still getting bullied just like in 95.
And like, do you think in Ohio or like Arkansas?
Yeah. No.
Kids are not. Kids are like,
I am talking to nieces, nephews, that kind of stuff. And it is different. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying kids aren't getting bullied. I'm just saying for sexuality and those kind of things, it really is kind of, and I've also been a middle school teacher. Yeah. Those things don't sting as much because they aren't as taboo. So they aren't reached for as a weapon as much.
I think that's
all I'm saying.
I think that's an optimistic view of how.
Well, I've been a middle school teacher and I have kids in my life that are 11 and 12 and 10.
I think maybe that applies.
Optimistic.
I think maybe that applies to the coastal, but if you're going to go into middle America, I think it's still, you see it on the news, you see it on social media. It's still hard for kids to come out as gay, even if you're
for sure.
Like,
I'm not saying it's easy now. I'm just saying, and absolutely coastal, regional, it all matters where you are. I just think it is very different than it was in the 90s. That the F word doesn't have as much weight and a dagger. Now it's kind of almost.
I don't agree with that. I still do think the F word is still as harsh and cruel as it was people using it in 95. I think if kids are using it today in school or even in public, like adults using it against other adults, it still carries the same weight and sting that it did back when I was in school.
But I don't think it's being used in that way as much as it was in the 90s.
I don't know.
Like in the 90s, I feel like everybody was reaching for that as a thing. Like I even in high school in the 90s was like, that's so gay.
Well, the other thing with it is cancel culture. Now you'll get canceled for it, but it doesn't mean that it's still not out there.
There's repercussions. Yeah. Agreed. I'm not saying it's not out there. I'm just saying I think that it's not what it was in the 90s. In the 90s, you could absolutely be like, that's so gay. And everyone knew that that was some kind of connotation. Now, I don't think that happens on the offhand as much.
I don't know. I guess speaking from...
Maybe I'm ignorant.
Speaking from being somebody that's part of the LGBTQ community... I just think that the word still weighs the same. I still think people use it to hurt people. I still see it within our own community. And I'm sure when you get these junior high kids, I'm still certain they're still using it to bully other kids. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it's but it's still there and it's still happening. I'm sure of it.
It's just like they're still calling kids fat. They're still calling them poor.
Yeah.
They're still calling them, it's like the tried and true way to really ring someone's bell.
I know.
But that's what I'm saying is it's actually like from my experience being a middle school teacher, it's actually more wounding to be like, haha, you're so poor. You can't afford fill in the blank than be like, you're gay. You know what I mean? Like that's not. So that's what I mean, where I'm like.
My thought on that is, let's say as an adult now, I'm an adult, I'm in my 40s. I'd rather be called poor than somebody calling me a fag.
Yeah, yes.
And if I'm an adult and I'm still feeling that way, I can't imagine how a kid would feel if they're called a fag over being poor. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's just like, because I still think it's like very much still an insult. Like, why did that girl why did you decide to call me a lesbian? Like, because it's like, she's like, this is something that if you are, you should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's
as severe as well. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't think
I don't think it's the wound. I don't think it's the wound. And so that's why I think it's not used as much, because people are like, oh, well, that's not a bad thing anymore to be like, that's so gay. It's like, well, gay is, not bad anymore. That's all. I'm not saying it isn't used.
We hear what you're saying.
We've tangented. I'm not trying to defend bullies or say that bullies aren't.
So back to the film. Let's get back to the film.
This is gonna be a long episode.
Oh, holy moly!
You know who was in this film that I totally forgot and I was obsessed with? The guy that plays Steve, the lead band.
Yes, from
Ugly Betty. Daniel from Ugly Betty. I totally forgot he was in this.
He is also in
he does all of those freaking Christmas movies too.
At least a baker's dozen of these Hallmark movies, which are called Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man. But poor king. Dawn Wiener, she gets it from the beginning of the film all the way till the end when she has to still go to Disney World with the hummingbirds.
Well, which is like, I don't want to go to Disney
I don't
World.
want to. I know.
I don't feel sorry for her. That was the other part of this problematic part of the movie with me is especially once she results in, spoiler alert, her sister's kidnapping.
Hey,
I don't think, but that is also like, we have all thought about doing that.
Yeah.
We have all, and so
I was the oldest
crazy conclusion that it's like, oh, and she did it, and then she got kidnapped. But then the girl liked being kidnapped because she got control of McDonald's.
She got McDonald's, got control of the pusher.
And then Heather, Dawn is in actual trouble because she's gone to New York
herself.
by herself. And Mom's like, they don't really care because
that was this part of the film that really pissed me off. It always does that scene when she's calling on the payphone to the house. Her brother picks it up and she has to talk to Mom, and the mom is like completely oblivious that her other daughter is missing.
They don't care.
That went to New York
really
and was sleeping in the streets. I'm like, fucking
I hated this movie.
Parents.
Parents, man. But it reminded me of my childhood too. I was like, wow, didn't care about me.
Well, it goes back to like the latchkey kids and stuff. You're on your own and stuff, but
definitely a boxcar
yeah.
kid.
I mean, the film for me too is hilarious. There's so many funny parts in this movie and so many one-liners. And many. And the thing I really appreciate about this movie came out in 95, and it reminds me of a time in society and filmmaking when everything wasn't taken so freaking serious. You can laugh at stuff. Yeah. You can laugh at the darker sides of life, where now I don't think we are allowed to laugh as much at the darker side of life because you'll get canceled.
Or you have to be so purposeful in making it intentional.
It's exhausting.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
So this, that's, I think for me, one of the big appeals of this film, and why I think for me, it still holds up and I think it's a great film, is that it's that time capsule of the 90s where it was really, it reminded me of like the grunge era where everything was just so rebellious.
The hair and also his name was Steve Rogers, which is Captain America's name.
That was, right away. I was like,
I think maybe that's why I identify with the movie so much. It just reminds me of that rebellious time. And I miss that now because we don't really see that in these days.
Well, and I just love that, like, she also was like, because her parents treated her like shit. So she's like, I'm going to treat you like shit right back. So her mom's like, tear it down. She's like, no. It's final. It's staying.
Yeah. And like when she tells her, but when her brother's like, get out. And she's like, no, Steve and I are talking.
Exactly. He's like, being such a fascist. I was like, yes.
I also like that Steve was like, just
leave her alone.
let her stay. Yeah. I was the oldest, but I had those kind of older teenage friends in my church that were like, oh, she's cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm cool.
I had no older friends. I was a nerd.
You were a nerd.
But
I think this film probably really relates to people who grew up bullied or felt like a Dawn Wiener in junior high and high school.
Yes. Well, and I think also if you are a child of the 90s in any sense, I agree where this is something nostalgic. Yeah. As we go into the podcast and talk about my take on this and whether it holds up, I've got more to say on that matter. However, I think for our generation, and we are a wide generation on this podcast, I'm not going to throw anyone on the bus, but we're a good 8 years.
Yeah.
Wide span.
I'm a millennial.
But I also know from social media, this film has a resurgence within the young Gen Zers. It's like become a cult film that people seek out. And
okay, but watching. Gen Z are also they're
actually
Gen 30 soon.
No, Gen Zs are actually what I read an article where they said they're the new Gen X. Like they're kind of taking a lot of influence.
The in between.
Yeah. Well, it goes Gen X, millennials, and then Gen X, millennials, and then Gen Zs are the young 20-somethings. So
who's Gen Y?
Me.
Gen Y. There's a Gen Y.
Yep.
Yep. Millennial.
We're
that's
very,
millennial.
very small.
Yes. Millennials are Gen Ys. They're the same. Yeah.
Yes. So it's actually a very small window of the Gen X and millennial where we grew up kind of not in as much technology as the rest of the millennials, but still more technology than Gen Xers. And I am right. I am 1982. Hey-oh. So I am right on that cusp. I'm right in the middle of that Gen Y, and I very much feel it. We are something in the in-between. We are the cusp.
So the director of this film, you know what TV show he got inspiration from to write this?
Elf.
No. The Wonder Years.
Wonder Years. That makes so much sense.
Surprising.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
That's not surprising.
So he actually wrote the script in '88 and then put it on the back shelf and then came back to it in the early 90s and then rewrote it.
It's so quintessential 90s. I'm glad it was made in the 90s. I'm glad that it was of that time.
You know what's really funny because just how much this film has impacted, I guess, underneath pop culture and a cult following. There are drag queens that do Dawn Wiener in full drag. Yes. I've seen, and I'm like, that is so amazing.
Well, I was talking to the guy I was dating. I was like, oh my gosh, we should be Dawn and Steve
for Halloween. I would totally do Dawn Wiener in the green and then the blue top.
In the green, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And I'll dress up Rob as Missy in a tutu.
And Missy in a tutu.
We'll go as Dawn and Missy. How hilarious would that be? That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, so Brynne, when was the first time you saw this movie? Let's get into that.
I saw this movie in probably the 5th grade.
Yeah.
It was before middle school. Well, and it's weird because middle school is, why are you looking at me like that?
No, she has the judgy faces tonight. Everything judgy
face on right now.
I have a huge problem with this movie.
Just like we had a huge problem with that piece of shit, the Frog Prince. Now, this was 10 times better than the Frog Prince. You have to admit that.
Debatable.
No, I don't think so.
At least there was no frog scrotum.
Yeah. That movie, was problematic. Okay, let's get back to that. We don't need to talk about that.
That was problematic.
Okay, when did you watch it?
When did you watch it? In this movie, so I'll take a frog scrotum any day.
He didn't molest her. He just took pictures of her doing pirouettes. Yeah. All right.
That's better.
Go ahead, Brynne. When did you first watch this film?
About the 5th grade. It was before I was in middle school, because for me, middle school was 7th, 8th grade. I know it's different for different people. But I saw it in the 5th grade, and it was right at my peak. I was peak elementary school chubby, braces, two older brothers with like cute guys hanging around, and me just being such a drama nerd, listening to Les Mis and my braces, being so painfully earnest and like writing my own poetry. So I remember thinking like, Dawn girl, I know it.
You can relate.
Different sexual feelings and like not understanding. So like very much I'm like, I remember being bullied and like pretty badly and not telling my parents because there's like an inherent shame that comes with it because you feel like you're
for
doing
sure
something to deserve it. And like, yeah, I was such a little earnest Chabette. And I just remember thinking like, man, they see me. Somebody sees me.
They recognize and they go, yep, I made a movie just for you.
Yes, someone else like understands and feels this way.
Pain.
And I just remember it was a very impactful, like reassuring moment in my life.
Yeah.
And really, we've talked about this before. Like Tony and I are super love for cinema and the different movies, but I think it really sort of reinforced that I liked movies more than people.
Yeah, for sure.
They're much more validating for me than hanging out with other people. So just like loved this movie. And I have a thing, and my brother has this too, where if we get too embarrassed during a movie, we'll have to turn it off and leave. Like I had to leave the theater during Never Been Kissed. I just cannot take it when people are embarrassed. So I remember it took me a little bit to get through it. But then once I was through it and I understood it, I rewatched it. But it's been a good 15 years since last time I saw it. So rewatching it took me right back.
Did you enjoy it?
And it was
when
like,
you rewatched it?
I loved it. I loved it. I was like thinking to my younger self, I was like, you keep going, you little Chabette. You're going to be okay. Like, just, you're going to get your braces off and, you're going to make your little way. So it was nice to like reconnect with that time in my life.
I have the same as you, Brynne, because I watched this in the theater because I was a senior in high school when it came out. And I remember going to the theater and seeing it just because I remember going, oh my God, this is going to be hilarious and I'm going to like it. And when I saw it, I was like, shit, I was Don Wiener in junior high.
Yep.
And then I really related to the film. And I think that's why I liked it so much. And I still do after all these years. I rewatch it. And like I was saying, it's like this renegade period of filmmaking. Do you remember that, Brynne? Like when it was like shoestring budget to put these films out.
Like no budget. I mean, and it was also very much like Party Girl, which Lena.
And this was before digital film. So to put a film up and get it out, it took a lot of people to do it. It wasn't as easy as now because of technology.
And the guy that I'm dating, we were watching it together and he kept saying, is this a comedy?
I think it is.
What is this?
Yeah.
And I was like, it was the period in the 90s where movies could just be.
Yeah.
Like
there wasn't any rules. There wasn't any, you can't say this, you can't do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And this film really just said no to all of that and said, they were like, we're making this film and this is how we're going to do it. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. It's going to resonate with people. And I think it did. I think it's over the years why it's such a cult classic film. It found its like audience and these people who really identify with Don Wiener. You know what I mean? And being bullied.
It's like a John Waters situation where it's like the outsiders.
Yes.
Yeah. It's made for the misfits of society.
Like campy.
Yeah. That's what I love
about it. But it made you really feel.
And there was definitely an era in the 90s where these indie films were getting made. Like you said, Tony, where like movies were just made. They didn't have to necessarily fit into
a box like they do now. And stuff.
Right. Like they kind of fit into several boxes and no boxes at all. And I do remember that. And you can see that when you're going back on films in the 90s. I feel like there was this big push.
It's like,
and this is definitely one of those kind of 90s
it's like
films.
This, Party Girl, Singles, The Clerks, all of those.
Singles. Oh like my God. How I love that.
I mean? We need to add that on the list because that's one of the ones I've always wanted to watch. And
but I still even like I've watched the film over the last few years and I haven't probably seen this in probably a year, and then rewatching it took me right back to like high school. And I'm through the whole film, I'm just like, Don, lose your shit and go after them. And like when Lolita's like tells her like, I want to watch you shit. I'm like, Don, just kick her. Just kick her.
Kick her right in the fucking ovaries.
I know. So at the end of the movie, it always gets me pumped. Like, come on, somebody's look at me wrong. I'm going to take it. I'm going to do one for Don Wiener.
This is for Don.
This is for Don.
How weird is that too, though? Like, can you just make yourself shit? I can't.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a different podcast.
Oh, wait, oh, you know what time it is? We're totally like behind schedule, but
let's start.
Name drop.
Rachel Maddow. I spend an hour with her every single day.
I once played a drinking game with
Celine Dion, Liza Minnelli, Cher, Laura Dern. I don't know her.
Who would you say is the most famous person in your phone?
My good friend Ben Affleck and his crippling addiction to back tattoos.
I have the best Lady Gaga story of all time.
Hate him, loathe her, over them, cancel it, tell me everything.
All right, it's time for name drop. This is our version of 6 Degrees. So who are we going to pick from this film and then pair it for the next one? Because we did Heather I can never. Maserati.
Heather Maserati.
Isn't the only other famous person Steve Rogers?
Yeah,
Yes.
Eric.
Like if we're going for chances for.
So from our next film, Brynne, this cast is
so many,
so many famous people. Who should we do?
What do you think?
Amelia?
We should probably do like I don't want to do
the obvious.
Hey guys, I don't know
what about Patrick Swayze, the late great.
Let's do Patrick Swayze.
Let's see if we can do this. I have a feeling we're not going to be able to. So Eric Mombius, the guy that plays Steve Rogers, who is Daniel in Ugly Betty, to Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze.
So that's going to be our name drop. We're going to try to see if we can do this by the end of the show. But now it's the time that I know Brynne and I are dreading is Lena's take on this film and what she thought of it. Let's get this over with. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Let's do it. Okay, come on.
I hated it.
Hate's a strong word. Why?
Okay. So I can appreciate, again, like we kind of talked about earlier, the 90s films that were those independent films, and you didn't have to necessarily be about anything. I recognize, and I do think this is one of those movies that if I watched it closer to that time frame, I would have a greater appreciation for it. However, I also think this is one of those movies that does not hold up. So if you did not watch it during that time frame, it is wildly problematic.
Wait.
Trigger warning to everyone listening. They say retard a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is a part of the 90s. I went to middle school and high school in the 90s. That was regular vernacular. So it is a sign where, it is a movie that represents the time, especially middle school of that time. Like that is absolutely appropriate for that time. Is it still like every time they said it, I went,
yeah.
But does that make it a horrible film?
No, there's more. I also have a huge problem. We've already talked about it. The young boy threatening rape. We talked about trigger warnings and that kind of stuff. To me, this was a trigger warning because I actually had an experience as a very young kid who was naive, where I had a popular kid who would insult me to everyone else and then try to grope me in private, and use those kind of like things that he used. And to me, that's toxic. That's not cute. That's not something that needs to be.
Do you think that they were trying to romanticize it or show that it was cute?
I don't think
not necessarily. I don't think they necessarily were trying to show it was cute. I think it was very much a sign of the times. Mm-hmm. But do I think that's a sign of the times that needs to live forever as something that is like, hey, this is the way we used to charm each other? Like, no, that was really messed up and really toxic. And I cannot enjoy this movie because all of that scene, when he calls her on the phone, all I kept thinking was, I wish she had an adult she could tell.
Yeah, I think that adds to the realism of it, but I guess I can see what you're saying in that, like, she does end up wanting to be his girlfriend.
Right. Well, and to me, the really problematic thing, and I guess this is what, like, if it had been shown in a different light, I think I wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it. But yes, it is absolutely true that especially middle school age, you confuse that as liking and that kind of stuff. But I would have liked if there was some kind of scene that then, and obviously, again, this is a sign of the times, we didn't get to see how problematic that was. How this, like, it was so problematic. And yet I recognized a sign of the times, but also this is why I'm like, this is not a movie that holds up. This is not a roll your eyes on one.
I think it does. I think it, I know for you, I think watching the film, you take a lot of your personal journey and see it through the film, which a lot of people do when they watch film.
Right. And you do too with
to an extent.
And that's what I'm saying is I don't think this throwing out loosely of several R words and that kind of stuff, I don't think if you're watching it through a 2021 or 2015 lens, you can appreciate it as much as you can, Tony. And that's why I'm like, no, this movie does not hold up at all. It's wildly problematic. We don't ever get an ending of where she realizes. But
also that is one of the joys of the movie that I think they did such a good job is they don't end it with a cookie cutter happy ending. It's like real freaking life. That's what somebody sees me. Do you know what I mean? And this is an interesting fact. On Rotten Tomato, as of now, this film still holds a 90% on Rotten Tomato and an audience percentage of 86. Still,
I'm just trying to understand. Does it show the age breakdown of the audience though?
No, it just says out of 25,000 plus rating. I think it's probably it could be a bunch of different ones. I wouldn't just say it's just our generation, but I mean,
do you think that it doesn't hold up because you think this stuff isn't happening anymore?
Maybe that's a good way of putting it. Because I'm wondering.
No, not at all. And I think that you guys think that's what I'm saying.
That's how it sounds.
I'm not
that's
saying
how
that.
It sounds.
No.
So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is this stuff is still happening, yes, but it's on a whole different level and playing field than what we knew in the 90s. What this film represents in the 90s. The bullying that happens now, it's online.
But it's
the bullying,
the message of the movie, just because the medium has changed or it's different types of bullying, I still think that the themes resonate.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say, Brynne, is that even though like the themes of the movie, I think are still relevant today, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think you know the bullying may have changed. It may be slut shaming now. It may be society shaming. It may be your socioeconomic status. It might be racism. The type of bullying may have changed, but I still think the general themes are the same in that this stuff is happening and people are getting bullied and they're having to deal with it and they're not being able to reach out to their teachers or their parents because that's still very much a thing that's happening. They're all little islands.
I agree, but I think that this film actually snapshots such a specific moment in time that it makes it not the bigger picture. Yes, it's relatable. Everyone can relate to middle school and how awful it is, bullying and all that kind of stuff. However, what makes this not relatable is all the stuff that is so culturally specific to that mid-90s period that does not transfer over anymore. And there are so many other films about teenage bullying. And this is such a culturally specific one and one that is also problematic now, 25 years later, that, that's
we can
where my
agree
problem
to disagree. I personally think that the film still can be relatable in 2021. That's my point.
I got the name drop. Do you want to hear it?
Oh, you did? Let's do it. Let's do it.
I fucking did
How?
it. Eric Mabius is in one of the fucking Resident Evil movies.
That's right, with Mila Jovovich, who had a CD, if anybody remembers, Divine Madness. Was it? No, Divine Happy. Do you remember that? And it was like all folky? Yes. I was religious about that CD when it came out.
Oh my God.
I do. I remember.
Yeah, wasn't it good? It was such she only did one freaking album and then she stopped.
I wanted more.
God, what was it called? Divine Comedy. It was called Divine Comedy. And remember the beginning was that funny. What is it, Lena? The Renaissance type of painting.
The Renaissance,
I just remember the CD album cover, which I can't describe. Which I got at Hastings from Texas.
Okay, go ahead, Brynne. How did you get it?
Okay, so Eric Mabius was in Resident Evil with Mila Jovovich. Mila Jovovich was in The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was in Mortal Thoughts with Demi Moore. Demi Moore was in Ghost with Patrick Swayze.
Oh my God, Brynne. I really didn't think you were gonna get this one this week.
Brynne, I wish you could get paid for this.
I know.
Oh my God, if this were a job, I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you fools.
Wait, you're getting paid?
I know. Wait, you are? How are we not? The one thing with this film that is still, even when I watched it now, that it drives me crazy is all of the adults in the film. They drive me absolutely nuts. Like, nobody stands up for Dawn Wiener. Like, none of the adults. And the parents, it really pisses me off through this whole film. Like, how do we keep reviewing these films with fucking terrible parents?
Because I feel like that was everything 80s and 90s was just like, parents are awful. Literally.
I think it was a different kind of awful. I think back.
They were like outright, like, we hate you.
Yeah, where now I think it's a little more sinister-y awful and a little more manipulative.
I'm used to it. Like, I think it's mostly they're like the teachers, the parents in Charlie Brown, right? Where they're sort of ancillary.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
But this is like, her parents are fucking
awful.
Evil.
They're awful.
Your parents literally could care less if you lived.
Yeah.
We don't care anymore.
But also too is that this is a question. I wonder if the filmmaker did that on purpose, as that's how Dawn Wiener views her parents. And that was her view of the parents.
Also I have to say, having grown up in a large family, there are times that you feel I was not a middle child. I was the oldest child. But still, there's still times that like you feel like, does anyone care if I live or die? Yep. Like I think that I could just be like, in the middle of the living room, and life would go on.
Yeah.
I'm a straight up middle child, 2 older brothers, 2 younger sisters. I remember like lining
You're the
out
quintessential.
Yes, in the kitchen, lining out half a bottle of aspirin, and just be like, guess I'm gonna do this now. No one said a damn word. No one even phased. They're like making dinner.
Wow,
I'm like,
you were the Dawn Wiener.
I was. Oh my God.
See, I literally did that shit as the oldest because I was like, I'm great. Okay, I'm the babysitter. All I exist is to take care of these people.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I did something similar where I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. And my parents like, are you, when you're done killing yourself, can you please put your sisters and brothers twice away?
They're like, don't make a mess.
Taking that aspirin, defrost
and it was just
the
like,
chicken.
You guys have lost the whole point.
Remember how scared you would get when your parents asked you to defrost the meat?
Well, I like how we were talking the film's problematic, but here we are talking about suicide. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That is painless.
So wait, can we go to the point where I put this in my passport and give you my grades?
No, not yet.
So one other thing, hold your horses, okay, Lena? We already know you're going to give it a F, and it's not getting a step. So why do we even have to bother asking it?
I want to skip it today.
The other thing that I had to keep remembering in the film is all of these kids, even Steve Rogers, they're all kids in the film. Like they are all high school or junior high kids.
Steve Rogers.
I know, but I'm saying the character was. He was still in high school. So I know. I was like, that is a 20-some-year-old trying to play 17. That is not believable.
That's a 27-year-old going, please don't put that in a script scene where I have to make out with an 11-year-old.
He was
He was like, please, please, don't make me do this.
Yeah. So the original script was a lot darker. And then once they got the green light, the guy that directed and wrote it, he was like, no, we got to tone it down a bit. So,
we trimmed it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, but it is time of that show for...
Dry martini.
Oui, monsieur.
Wait. 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, half a measure of quinoa lily, shake it over rice, and then add a thin slice of lemon peel.
It's drink. I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another.
Grace, give me a stinger.
All right, this is where we pair food and cocktails for this film. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh, you took mine.
And spiked Hawaiian
That's what I was going to say. Literally, spiked Hawaiian bunch of fish sticks. God damn it, Brynne.
Tony and I had the same. I knew that's why I went first. I was like, I bet Tony and
She's like, I need to steal this first.
God damn it. Now I got to rethink. Lena, go before I have to think.
All right. I'm going to go Jell-O.
She never ended up making Jell-O in the film.
She didn't, but she knows how.
But she was so ready to be like.
I love the part when she tells Steve, do you want to see my fingers? Because she didn't understand.
He's like, yeah, I see them.
Which that was another thing I related to, where it was like finger banging.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is the other thing. They're all like junior high school kids, and their understanding of sex is just so like.
Nothing.
Oh, we all remember being like that in high school.
That is what makes this movie lovely. Is we all remember that kind of stuff. But anyway,
blowjob was blue on it.
I thought it.
I
thought it was like this is like elementary school, and I remember saying it to my mom, and she started laughing. And I thought it was a hairstyle. You went to the salon and got a blowout. It was the same thing. That's what I thought it was.
I mean, that's legit. That's legit because a blowout,
right?
a blowjob. Yeah, you're like a blowout is when you like do it all, and a blowjob is when you just curl it.
Because I remember telling my mom because she said I'm going to the salon. I said, "Are you going to go get a blowjob at the salon?"
There are so many stories where I'm just like, I would like if I could be reincarnated, I would be reincarnated as Tony and Manny's mom.
Oh, dear Lord, you wouldn't want that. Oh, dear Lord. We were a nightmare. A nightmare.
Manny's the other twin, by the way, listeners. Sure. Sorry. Okay.
All right.
So my snack.
Yeah, your snack. Let's do it because I have to think of mine. Go ahead.
Jell-O. Literally Jell-O. Like no alcohol in it, just Jell-O. And then I guess the drink would have been a spiked icy Kool-Aid.
Oh, okay.
Like you accidentally come home, like I feel like it's what Steve Rogers would have come home to, because his mom was Stacy's mom sunbathing by the pool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mine would be like a strawberry daiquiri blended for the Slurpee scene. Strawberry daiquiri, right. And then to eat, probably like cake, like chocolate cake or something like that for the sweet, for when she doesn't. Wasn't that such a fucked up scene? I was like, Dawn, slap your mother. Get up and slap your mother. Oh. Yeah.
I actually related to some of that scene because there were moments where I was like, I remember being my mom's least favorite.
So when she's like, stay at the table until one time my mom wanted me to eat a steak and I didn't eat meat. She said, you're going to stay at this table until you eat a steak.
Christina.
And I was there all night.
Okay, Christina.
My Nana used to do that to me all the time with the squash. I would just be like, well, I'll see you tomorrow morning with this plate of fucking squash.
That whole scene, Brynne, where she's like, stay at the table, remind me of Mommy Dearest with the meat.
Yes, it is. Yes,
totally reminded me of that scene. Yes. Oh, the other character in the film that I always just felt so bad for is Brandon. Because I know that kid. Yep. I went to school with that kid. And it was all of how they were raised. And I knew that
how
it was
they're
about,
raised,
and in the film, I know a lot of people like think he's problematic, but I just felt bad for that character because I'm like, I know that character.
And then when you meet his dad,
yeah,
So,
and you're like, fuck.
That character was the kid that I was always friendly with in school, and then they would develop a hardcore crush on me only because I treated them like a human being. Like it wasn't because they actually liked me.
Okay.
It was only because they were like, you treat me
Maybe
like I
that's why
exist in this
Brandon
world.
ended up like actually liking Dawn towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
Well, and that I do feel like those kids in school, and they still exist, where it's just like, you treated me like a person, so of course I'm gonna. Yeah, it's problematic.
You already said, okay, let's do grades. Let's see.
I give it an A+.
I give it an A+ too. I still really enjoy the film for what it is, and I think if kids,
you both gave it an A+ before.
A+, I'm sticking with it, and I think if a younger kid stumble onto this film, or younger people, or people who didn't grow up in the '90s, I think they could still appreciate the film for what it is, and the character of Dawn Wiener. Everybody could, especially if you were bullied, you can relate to Dawn Wiener.
They used to call me McGeekrin.
McGeekrin, really? Yeah, I got Tony Baloney, of course. Yeah.
I was the long lost Brady.
The long lost Brady. That's so
how
sad.
terrible.
That's so terrible. So terrible.
To be related to Marsha Brady.
I know. Okay, we know it.
No.
What are you gonna give it?
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, my grade is C-.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Okay,
Not
wow.
enough. Okay.
Yep, okay.
I'm surprised.
Does it get a stamp?
No.
I'm gonna put a stamp in there anyway.
Okay.
Our next movie. I know.
However, I want to say this is a movie. I have a niece. She's middle school age.
I know.
I want to watch this film
and
with her.
Get her take on it. I'm very curious.
Yes.
And then we'll revisit
and
this.
I will totally, you guys know, I will totally shut my face up.
Yes. I would be curious for a junior high kid if they're ready for it to watch this and see what they really think. But let's talk about.
You guys know my niece.
Yeah, let's talk about our next film.
Someone...
What we're gonna pick? Should we?
Yes.
Yeah, we should
so we're doing a classic. This one, I think everybody and their mother has seen this film, but Lena. Yeah. It is the 1983 coming of age story. Another one. The Outsiders. Yes.
What are you fucking talking about?
I know everybody's going, what the fuck? Lena's never seen The Outsiders?
Big Golden Pony Boy. Yeah.
Oh, I love this film. It's a good film.
Never even heard of it.
Oh,
I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to give it an A.
I'm going to give it a solid A. I'm going to give it a solid A.
Lena, do you know of this film?
At all.
Outsiders. Wait. Brynne gave it an A-.
I gave it an A. And then what do you know about this film?
I know nothing about this film. I know it's a Brat Pack-ish film.
Okay.
I know everyone keeps warning me it's not the vampire one.
Not Lost Boys.
Lost Boys, no.
Yeah.
Correct. Which to me, I'm like, Lost Boys, Outsiders.
I think you're going to like this one. I really do think. It's actually a really good film, a great cast. And the book is
I know it's about a gang.
Yeah. And the book that it's based off of is incredible. The book's really good.
Yep.
But we're going to do Outsiders for next week. And this was a very passionate episode, which I like. I like when it gets passionate because everybody has opinions. And it's great. You should have opinions and you should talk about it. And
you should tell me I'm right.
No, you're not. And like sometimes the movie will be for some people and sometimes it won't. And that's just how it is. But next week we are going to cover The Outsiders. There's going to be a lot to talk about on that film. It's a very good film. If you haven't seen it, check it out and then come back and watch us review it and give us your comments of what you think about the film and all of that good stuff. You can follow us anywhere you get podcasts at Filmspringa. And we're Filmspringa on Instagram, and you can email us filmspringapodcast@gmail.com if you have any movie recommendations for us to watch. But that is it for us this week. That was Welcome to the Dollhouse. And next week, we're going to talk all Outsiders. Bye, everybody.